Ever been trapped in a life you never wanted? Adrien knew that feeling all too well. Today we delve into the life of Adrien, a young man from the bustling city of Manhattan who had just stepped out of his father's shadow. Adrien had been chained to the family's law firm, a legacy he was born into but one he never desired. His father's recent death, while tragic, gave him a taste of freedom he had long yearned for. Adrien was a man of simple dreams. He was not one for the corporate world. The endless meetings, the relentless paperwork, the cutthroat competition. He yearned for something different, a life far removed from the high-rise buildings and the never-ending hustle of Manhattan. And so, after his father's funeral, Adrien found himself sitting in the back seat of a cab, his life packed into a single suitcase. He was headed to Newark Airport, leaving behind the echoes of his father's law firm and the life he never wanted. A sense of relief washed over him, the city lights fading in the rear-view mirror. He looked forward to the promise of a new beginning, away from the memories and expectations that had kept him tethered for so long. But as the saying goes, the best-laid plans of mice and men often go awry. And Adrien, while eager to break free from his past, was unaware of the uncanny turn his life was about to take. He was stepping out of one nightmare only to fall into another. His eyes grew heavy in the back seat of the cab, the city's soundscape slowly replaced by the rhythmic hum of the car's engine. The last thing he remembered was the cab merging onto the highway, the bright lights of the city replaced by the dark, empty road ahead. Little did he know his life was about to take a turn for the worse. Tune in next time as we unravel the chilling events that followed Adrien's departure from Manhattan. On the way to the airport, Adrien drifted off to sleep in the cab, but when he woke, he was not where he expected. Adrien's eyes flickered open, revealing nothing but darkness. His mind was foggy, the remnants of a deep sleep still clinging to his consciousness. He tried to move, to sit up, but his surroundings were unfamiliar, his body stiff and uncooperative. The plush confines of the cab had been replaced by a cold, hard surface. The hum of the city, the steady rhythm of the cab, all gone, replaced by a silence so profound it was deafening. His heart pounded in his chest as adrenaline surged through his veins. He was not in the cab anymore, and he was certainly not at the airport. He was somewhere else, somewhere he did not recognize. The air around him was heavy, damp, and carried a faint, unsettling scent. His mind raced, thoughts tumbling over each other in a desperate attempt to make sense of the situation. He tried to remember the cab ride, the route they had taken, any detail that might give him a clue as to his current location. But his memory was a blur. The events leading up to his unexpected awakening nothing more than a jumbled mess. He forced himself to take slow, steady breaths to calm his racing heart. He needed to think, to figure out a way out of this situation, but the more he tried to piece together the puzzle, the more elusive the solution seemed. His eyes began to adjust to the darkness, shapes slowly materializing out of the shadows. He was in a room, a small, confined space with walls that seemed to close in on him. The room was bare, devoid of any furnishings, save for the hard surface he was lying on. The silence was broken only by the distant drip, drip, drip of water, each drop echoing like a heartbeat in the stillness. His pulse quickened as fear gripped him, a primal instinct warning him of danger. He was not alone, he could feel it. A presence in the room, a palpable tension that hung in the air. And then he saw her. In the darkness, there was a figure, a woman in a blood-stained gown. Her dress, once a symbol of elegance and purity, was now a haunting reminder of an unknown horror. The once bright fabric was marred by dark crimson stains, each one telling a silent tale of terror. Her skin was as pale as moonlight, contrasting starkly against the darkness that surrounded her. Her eyes were the most terrifying of all. They were devoid of any warmth, any semblance of humanity. They were cold, empty voids, like two black holes that could suck the life out of anyone who dared to look into them. Adrien, our protagonist, was frozen in fear. He was trapped in this nightmarish reality, unable to escape. He wanted to look away, to run and hide, but his feet were rooted to the spot. A chill ran down his spine as the woman started to move towards him. Her movements were unnatural, her steps slow and deliberate. She moved as if floating, her feet barely making a sound against the cold, hard floor. Each step she took was a step closer to Adrien, who was paralyzed by fear. As she neared, he noticed an old tarnished locket hanging from her neck. It was a locket he had seen before, a family heirloom passed down through generations. His father's locket. His heart pounded in his chest as he realized the implications. This wasn't just a random encounter. This woman, this terrifying apparition, had some connection to his family. The realization sent a wave of dread washing over him. Who was she? What did she want from him? Despite the fear gnawing at him, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he had seen her somewhere before. Her face, though twisted in a gruesome snarl, had a hint of familiarity. It was as if he was looking at a distorted reflection of his past, a dark secret that his family had buried. There was something eerily familiar about her. Adrien couldn't shake the feeling that he knew this woman. But how? And why was he here? Adrien's mind raced, his heart pounded in his chest, like a desperate prisoner trying to escape. He was caught in an enigma, lost in a labyrinth of his own past. The room felt like a closed book, the woman a riddle, and his presence the question mark. In the obscurity of the room, Adrien was forced to delve into the darkest corners of his past. He remembered his father, a stern man, always absorbed in his work, his face hidden behind a mountain of legal documents. The man had always been an enigma to Adrien, a fortress of secrets. Adrien remembered the strange occurrences, the inexplicable events that his father had always brushed off as mere coincidences, the eerie noises at night, the whispers in the wind, the shadows that seemed to dance on the walls. He remembered the fear that used to grip him at night, the nightmares that used to haunt him. As he pieced together the fragments of his past, a chilling realization began to dawn on him. The woman in the blood-stained gown, the dark room, the fear that seemed to seep into his very bones, all of it was connected, all of it was part of an inheritance, a legacy that his father had left him. Adrien's father had been a lawyer, a man of the law, but Adrien now realized that his father had been dealing with laws far beyond the comprehension of ordinary men. Laws not of this world, but of a world shrouded in darkness, a world that thrived in the shadows. Adrien's father had not left him a law firm, he had left him a curse that had now come to claim him, a curse that had been waiting for him in the darkness. Adrien could now see the terrifying truth. He was not in a dark room, he was in a dark world, a world his father had unwittingly dragged him into. His father's death had set something free, something dark. The inheritance was more than just a law firm, it was a gateway to a world where nightmares were real, where fear was the norm, and where the woman in the blood-stained gown was waiting for him. The truth was more horrifying than Adrien could ever have imagined. Our protagonist, Adrien Decaux, found himself ensnared in a web of deceit and horror, spun from the darkest corners of his own lineage. The woman in the blood-stained gown, an apparition from his nightmares, was not just a random specter. This entity, this terrifying woman, was linked to the Decaux family, a spectral remnant of a past best forgotten. Her presence was a manifestation of the sins committed by his ancestors, her torment a grim reminder of the blood-stained legacy he had unknowingly inherited from his father. Like a shroud, the dark truth began to unfold. Adrien's father, the man he had known as a stern law practitioner, was not just a lawyer. He was part of a lineage that dabbled in the macabre, an ancestry that was steeped in dark arts and forbidden rituals. The woman in the blood-stained gown was a result of those unholy practices, a chilling testament to the Decaux' family secrets. Adrien had always felt a sense of relief, a freedom when he left his father's firm. He thought he was escaping a life he never wanted, a life dictated by law books and courtrooms. But the reality was far from it. The law practice was just a facade, a mask that hid a much more terrifying truth. Adrien's path was not one he chose, but one that was chosen for him, etched in the annals of his family history, waiting for him to stumble upon it. The woman in the blood-stained gown, the dark room, the fear and terror were all part of his inheritance, an inheritance that was far more horrifying than any law firm or courtroom. He was free from his father's firm, but not from his legacy. The chilling inheritance was his to bear.